Please welcome Susan Just. Thank you.
Okay. I'm not bringing my phone up here so I can make a phone call. I am somewhat time challenged, so if I seem like I'm taking, like if we're here 2 hours, it's okay if you warn me or give me a nod or something, you know, do the nose thing. I'm pretty organic, and but part of it is because I like to take energy and vibes from my audience, and sometimes, although I have a bullet-pointed list, this is actually more of an outline than I've ever had before. But the cool thing about it is it just reminds me of the things that I'd like to share. I have to say thank you to Gary. Gary, you're awesome. We were just talking earlier. He's been here for working with the organization for over 14 years. So let's give him a real big... Yeah, when he asked me if I wanted to do November 1st or November 8th, I was like, November 1st, it's the Day of the Dead. That was no problem for me because I actually was so excited about this topic, and I actually weave a little bit about death and life into most of my topics because I think of it as a really wonderful way to get a sense. What we know about death can actually help us inform us about our life. And the interesting thing about today is Day of the Dead, and sometimes it's celebrated over 2 days, the first and the second. It's also All Saints' Day in the Catholicism, and tomorrow is All Souls' Day. And usually in most religious practices or even pagan practices, there's usually a day where we are able to honor the dead or recognize the dead or remember the dead. And in fact, there's Samhain. It's considered to be the time when the veil is the thinnest between the living and the dead. Now, you would think that as a hypnotherapist, I don't deal with death all that much, but I actually do. I am a success coach. I also talk with people about their spirituality to try to find some inspiration in their life. I also help them heal their past and to kind of help change the way they relate to their world. I'm not just a traditional hypnotherapist where I do talk suggestion or I give people suggestions. What I do is I hypnotize people so that we can relax their mental pathways so that we can dive into what their memories are and what they've retained from the past. Now, I'm not going to talk a whole lot about that because most of you have already heard some of it, but I really want to dive more into death. Yay. You know, when I was a small kid, I used to think about death all the time. And as a product, a lot of us are probably Generation X, or some of you guys might be, the generation, the baby boomers. And I grew up on an air base, and I knew exactly what buildings could survive a nuclear blast. I was very fixated on that. We grew up in the age of seeing the effects of a nuclear warhead, Hiroshima, Nagasaki, a lot of those things. And so death was a constant companion for me. And it's kind of ironic, though, that not a lot of people I know have died, but yet I was fixated on it. And not in an unhealthy way, just more that I wanted to be prepared in case someone died. In fact, and I did not torture animals. I wasn't weird or difficult like that. But what I thought was I wanted to prepare myself, that in case someone I loved passed away, I wanted to know, I practiced how it would feel, and almost in order to prepare myself for it. I used to be worried about my dad running because he was in his 30s or 40s, and I was afraid that if he ran, his heart would explode and he would pass away. well, he's in his 80s now, so he's survived the running experiences in his life. They say that people, though, that the world is split between two camps. Those who never think about death and those who think about it all the time. So if you're one of those individuals who do think about death, you're not abnormal, you're not weird. What you're doing is you're just kind of practicing with it. How many people here think about death? Oh, yeah, I'm not alone. Thank you. And if you don't think about death, that's okay. We don't want to think about death so that we can suffer. What we do want to do is we want to think about death so that we can become enlightened, so that we can transcend this mortal coil. Because the more we understand about our life and the choices we've made, the more we can reconcile it, and the more that we can pass into the next world or whatever existence we're thinking about with more peace and clarity of mind. Now, I'm someone who believes in everything and nothing. I do tend to be an expert on past lives and future lives, but I also like to think that, in case I'm wrong, this is my only life that I get to lead. If there is nothing after this great expanse of this world, then I want to make sure that this lifetime is the best that I can make it, because there's no guarantees over on the other side. This is the only time Dan gets to be Dan, or Jan, or Gary, or myself, or you guys, or Ida. This is the only time that we get to be this person that we are in this body. So we might as well embrace it and enjoy the experience. One of the things I used to do when thinking about death is I knew I cared about someone when I would imagine how they would die or what I would do if they would die. And even sometimes, have you ever been near a bridge? And yeah, sometimes people wonder, what does it mean when they're by a bridge and they want to throw themselves over? Has anyone ever had that sensation or that experience? Yeah? Yeah. It's confounding. It's confusing. It's like you really want to live. And I have thought about it. And I think we have that sensation of wanting to throw ourselves over the bridge because between that moment of life and death, that's when you get to really, truly be alive. Or at least you're conscious of what you're losing and what you're missing or what you're leaving behind. My mom, she's had some challenges this last year has been really trying for her because my father has had to go into surgery and have his pacemaker removed. But in May, she was able to see her sister, and her sister lives in Canada. And they've been able to go back and forth. They mended some bridges. They're really close now again. Surprisingly, though, they came up in May, just before my dad's surgery, and it was really a wonderful opportunity for them to connect and to spend time together. Unfortunately, 5 months later, she was diagnosed with cancer. And she just passed away about a week and a half ago. And one of the messages that I get from it is that you never know when it's going to be your time. You never know that last time or that most recent time you talk to them, whether that's going to be the last time that you'll get to talk to them. I talked with my mom on the phone several times after that. And she cried, and so did my dad. They were so surprised by the suddenness of that experience. My mom was struck by the fact that this was her last sister, her last family relative in the immediate, and so she was the only one in the family remaining from that generation. And so I'm not my mom's counselor in any way, although I do help people, but fortunately I knew not to be afraid of her tears. I didn't personalize her tears, and I guess that's the advice that I can give to all of you. If you have someone that is dealing with a loss, is that sometimes you don't have to come up and say anything, but just being empathetic, sympathetic, really helps a lot. How many people here have had someone die recently, like within the last year? Yeah. It's, is there anything that you wish you would have done differently, or that you wish you could have done? Does anyone want to share? That's okay, I understand. You know, it's funny. I just kind of heard him say that he loves that idea that you wanted to make lefse with him, and and that when you do learn to make lefse, he's going to be there right by your side. Yeah. Yeah, that's so cool because, and I think that really spotlights. Thank you for sharing that. In case everyone didn't hear it, your uncle. She wishes that she could have taken the time to make lefse with him and learn that tradition. And yeah, that's one of the things that we can do in order to help the people that we care about live on. One of the things that I researched is that there was a nurse, within the last 5 years, there was a nurse who did palliative care. And one of the things that she said, her name is Bronnie, B-R-O-N-N-I-E, Ware, W-A-A-R-E. And she collected the 5 things that most people who are in palliative care, or was like at the end of life, you know, between here and death, she asked them, she talked with them, and the 5 things that she discovered was the first thing that they wish is that they wish they'd had the courage to live a life true to themselves and not the life that other people's expected from them. Now, what does that mean? What it means is that maybe their parents had the expectation that they were supposed to be a doctor versus an artist, or maybe they were expected to have children versus not having children. It's kind of funny. There was a period in time when my mom and dad were expecting me to have children, and I didn't, because I kind of feel like the whole world is my family, and how would I pay for all, if the whole world is already my family, I don't really want to add another to it. But if the whole world is my family, then I didn't feel like I really needed a child. But just recently, though, my mom's been saying, oh, no, you shouldn't have any children. And I'm kind of like, wait a second. Maybe I'm a contrarian, but now I'm thinking, well, maybe I will have a child. We'll see. That time might be passing. But this is the opportunity now to do the things. Sometimes people look at me and all the things I get to do, and they think of me as a witch. You know, like I do martial arts. I'm doing a documentary. Or like right now, I just started a screenwriting class, and with David Grant, who is actually pretty phenomenal, awesome teacher. And the class isn't graded, so it's not like I'm going to get an A because I'm saying this. But he is truly a great teacher. And you would think at my age, it's like, why am I suddenly decided to be a screenwriter? Well, the answer that I give to people is that I can. You know, there's no police officer who's going to tell me that I can't write a play. There is no police officer that says I can't make a documentary or I can't go on a trip. I'm kind of the god of my own life. And I think that that's what we all get to recognize. Although we may observe some higher deity or a higher power, there is no other higher power than the person, the spirit, the energy that is within our body right now. So I encourage people to take those risks. And if other people have opinions or ideas about what you're doing, that's okay. Don't take them on. Just keep on shining a light on your path. And that actually might illuminate an idea in someone else's mind it might actually liberate them to think, you know what, I can do that too. And that even extends to things like stopping smoking or weight loss or annihilating an addiction. Those are things important to think about as far as like what's the value of our life. Number 2 on the list was I wish I didn't work so hard. A lot of times people have to make the choice between working a 12-hour day versus a 10-hour day or a 5-hour day. Sometimes I work like 40, 50 hours a week, sometimes 60. But I have to say, though, I'm doing it because I like doing it. I want to do it. And so I think the operative word is don't choose not to work, but don't work so hard. That word hard makes it hard. So work consciously, work joyously, work with meaning. I certainly don't like doing, or at least I have to say, I'll correct myself. I don't like doing housework. If I had a choice between washing the dishes or going for a run, I definitely would choose the run. But the reality is, I've come to teach myself that as I do the dishes, I've developed a greater meaning or a greater harmony with that action. Now I realize I'm doing these dishes for me. It's a gift for me. I don't have to do dishes. The dishes will pile up and it will get smellier and smellier and kind of repulsive to anyone who comes in. But if I chose that route, eventually there wouldn't be any joy in that. But if while I'm washing dishes, I take on the persona or the awareness of love, it just becomes, and gratitude. Gratitude is a huge thing. Sometimes people ask me, how do I love? What does love mean? Well, the entree into that doorway of love is actually gratitude. Feeling gracious, feeling fortunate, or even feeling lucky. Those are all elements of gratitude. But ultimately, now when I do housework, I do it because it makes me more effective at accomplishing my goals. It also is me saying I love me to myself. It's a gift I give myself. Although I still don't make my bed, I actually sleep on top of it. Weird habit. I do like furry blankets. Oh, the stuff you guys get to learn about me. And then it's like kept for posterity on the internet. Oh, great. The third thing is I wish I had the courage to express my feelings. Now, what does that mean? Well, Minnesotans tend to be known as somewhat stoic, but I don't really think that's the case. My mom's Canadian, so I tend to be a little bit more expressive and enthusiastic. But one of the things that I've learned from Minnesotans, I've learned how to be more patient. I've learned how to see and hear and read between the lines. I've learned how to be more thoughtful about how I approach things. So thank you, all of you guys from Minnesota and from the Midwest, because that's been very helpful to me. You guys have helped make me a much more considerate and kind person. And that's what I see. A lot of times people like to talk about that Minnesota ice. And I don't think it's completely fair. Sometimes people do act as if they have too many friends, but maybe they're just being cautious. I've actually found that if you meet someone 3 times, invariably that ice does melt, and they start to kind of include you in. So I would say never give up trying to make friends. Just try to make it come at that better pace. And then when it comes to feeling emotions, I like to say that the most primary of all emotions is actually fear. And a lot of people are afraid of being fearful. All of a sudden I'm forgetting his name. I know you guys will help me out, but He was the Prime Minister of England, and he said, "There's nothing left to fear but fear itself." Churchill, thank you. And that's actually extremely true, because I have an article on my website called The Fear of Fear. And in that article, I contemplate, what's going on with that fear. And I've come to realize that sometimes people will negate their emotions. They're afraid of being afraid, so they won't ask themselves the difficult questions. At the root of anger is fear. Anger is the fear that something's not fair and it won't ever be fair. So rather than using anger as a coping mechanism, I'll just ask myself, what am I afraid of? And then I find that can actually create a much more authentic conversation. We also don't have to use our emotions at such a big volume. Emotions are the way that our brain talks to our body, and our body and our brain talks to our soul, if we believe in that. It's kind of the electrical conduit that allows us to work in synchronization. Sometimes people have their emotions at such great height that it's almost like they're taking money out of the bank and throwing it at the world. And the interesting thing about that is that if we're in the middle of the day just mulling over things, thinking, has anyone ever done that? Where you're just replaying a scenario in your mind? Yeah. It's a good thing, but it also, if we keep on playing it over and over again, we're running out of energy. And so then at the end of the day, we won't have that energy to go and make ourselves a meal, or go for a run, or meet up with friends. So one of the things that I will put forth is we can use our emotions. We don't have to use them at such a great volume. And that includes not just anger, sadness, loneliness, but it also includes happiness. Sometimes people are trying so hard to be happy that they're just exploding, and then they can't match that level of happy. And so that anything less than that level of happy seems not worthy, not worth our time. We don't have, this is probably helping me, that noise is helping me stay in my little space here. Because normally I'm roaming, prowling all over the stage. But that happiness, if we try and expect it to happen at such great volumes, then if we don't achieve that volume, we feel like something's missing. And so I don't strive for happiness. I actually strive for peace. And then it's funny, because once I came to that evolution of peace, I realized peace was happy. And then sometimes even the smallest things brought me joy, and I recognized it for being joy. So with number 3, I wish I had the courage to express my feelings. It doesn't mean that you have to express everything that's in your head. What it does mean is to express what you need to say with kindness. I often call this the velvet glove of love. If you would not want someone to say something to you in that way, with that kind of harshness, then don't say it to someone else. But do say everything with kindness and with a sense of self-awareness. The 4th one, I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends. Is there anyone here who's missing a friend right now? Yeah. I have to say, there's a lot of, Facebook is getting a lot of hard knocks. But I have to say, I love Facebook. It's my morning, afternoon, and night newspaper. It's the way I stay, connected to my friends. It's the way I'm their cheerleader from the background. I love knowing what's going on with my friends. And so, but could I do more face-to-face? Yeah, I could. And so definitely stay in touch with those friends. Even, I used to love my friends based on my ability to pick up where we last left off, that there was no sense of time in between. And so I think that one of the things that you can do in catching up with your friends is see their heart, respond to their soul. Don't think about the time that's passed. don't make yourself feel guilty about what you have or haven't done. Just touch heart to heart. Use that as your inspiration to go and connect with them. I don't think they will wonder where you've been. I think they'll say, let's do this some more. Without a doubt, I know that. The fifth one, I think, is really sums up everything. I wish that I had let myself be happier. There were times when I had broken up with old boyfriends, or I would remember the situation and wonder, why didn't it work out? And I would start feeling sad. And now I just kind of stop myself from doing that because that's suffering. It's like they had the right to choose. I have the right to choose. Have I broken up with people? Yeah. And if it's okay for me to break up with people, then it's certainly okay for them to break up with people. And the interesting thing is, the line that I say to myself is, does it make sense to suffer? And that's when I choose to jettison a particular emotion. I usually go and find out what is my fear, and I heal that fear. But ultimately, I ask myself, does this suffering serve? Does it make me a better person? Usually suffering doesn't make us a better person. The desire to love and to be kind, that actually helps us be a better person. Now I'm going to go through this next list. I work with a lot of grieving clients, people who have lost a loved one, people who have tried to commit suicide, people who are in a state of depression or sadness. Depression I kind of think of as sadness or inertia. But in thinking back over these clients, one of the things, or some of the things that they've said is that they wish they would have been more accepting, less judgmental, more appreciative of themselves and others. They also wish they had said, I love you more. They wish they hadn't avoided the idea of death and loss. They wish they hadn't held a grudge for so long. Some wish that their last words had not been said in anger. These are all good things to be aware of. What's really important is to always assess what brings value to our life. And because we never know when we're going to die. Just like what was going on with my aunt. They didn't know when she was going to die. She actually visited me in a dream, and this was when she was still alive. But I have had people visit me after they died. One was someone who had committed suicide, and another person had died from cancer. And what's really surprising, the emotion that I got from them was surprise. Surprise for being in my space and like, oh, I'm with Susan, why am I here? But also a surprise that they were dead. And I experienced the rush of what was going on for them, like, oh my God, I'm not clouded by all those emotions and thoughts and feelings, and I have more clarity in this spirit state. Whoa, what did I do? What just happened? And it's interesting to me in that, in seeing that difference, it made it even more important for me to communicate about living, about what it might feel like to be dead. Sometimes people ask me, what are ghosts? Well, ghosts are souls that don't know that they're dead. They're stuck on this earth. They still have things they want to accomplish, things that they want to do. Unfortunately, they just don't have that body to go forward in. Near-death experiences. Sometimes people ask me about that. Is this true? Is this real? And I don't know. I like to tease people that when we do hypnosis and I do age regressions and we clear up some of those mental pathways, in essence, I'm providing them a near-death experience. It's just that they're not going to die. Thank gosh. I'd be in really big trouble. But what happens when you die it's like all the mental pathways they're losing electricity, and so then they're kind of relaxing, and then all your emotions get to compare, contrast, analyze, your memories, your feelings, your thoughts. Compare, contrast, analyze, and then some of that baggage gets healed. That's what I help people do in hypnosis. Now, and it's a wondrous thing. And that's one of the reasons why when people come back from those near-death experiences, they almost have a sense of peace and clarity. Does anyone here know someone who's had an NDE? Yeah. What was the sense that you got from being in their presence? Can you share some? Wow.
And there was definitely a presence in the car looking up. So, somebody's pushing me from the back.
To get on out. It's interesting when we have those near-death experiences. There's a couple different types. What this lady just described was she had almost encountered a death experience, whereas there's another sense of near-death experience where you're almost completely checking out and you're almost gone. And both are really viable experiences. I have not had a near-death experience where I was almost dead, but I did once have an experience where someone where a ghost thought I was a ghost. And it was one of the craziest experiences I've ever had. I was in Canada at this old hotel. A train used to go past there all the time. And in the middle of the night, I was sleeping. And in my dream, I was in that same room, but it was constructed differently. And I was in the sitting room, and I could hear someone crying, just sobbing and sobbing. And so I went to the noise into this back room, bedroom, and I looked in, and there was this Native American woman. This is probably from the 1920s. She was in like a maid's outfit, but very, very simple, and longish hair. And she was just sobbing into her hands. And I got the sense that she was tired and her heart had been broken. And all of a sudden, she sensed me looking at her, and she looked up, and her eyes were like saucers, and her mouth was round. And I was just staring at her. Then I realized, oh my gosh, I'm the ghost here, and I just would disappear. So that kind of gave me a lot to think about between, that veil between life and death. And also, time isn't linear. It's amazing how our brain, we think of time as linear. We're born, we die, and all this time happens in between, and all these feelings and thoughts. Well, the reality is, all that information is in our brain right here. So time is in this space. And when we think about, they say alcoholism, it happens because people are chasing that high, or when we eat particular foods. Let's go ahead and do a quick little exercise. Go ahead and close your eyes. And I want you to think about your favorite food. Your favorite food, and I want you to imagine the taste of it. Imagine tasting it in your mouth. And then imagine all the times you've ever had that food. Go ahead and imagine, and it's not completely unpleasant, but you're starting to feel full. Like, wow, you don't have to be afraid of never having this food again, because you have all these sensations, these memories of having tasted this. And you feel very content, very centered, very pleasant. And as that sense of contentedness, you realize that this contentedness is not about the food, but it's actually about you. And this contentedness is about how much you love you. And as that love spreads throughout all parts of your body, all parts of your being, you become even more aware of yourself as a being. You start to sense your real life, your real energy. You become aware of your body as this is an animal, but it's a pet, it's a human, it's you. And you become even more sentient about your hand. In fact, go ahead and bring your sense of awareness to your hand. It could be your right hand, it could be your left hand. Imagine what that hand feels like. Feel it connecting to your essence. And now we're going to help you feel, how about your shoulder blade? Moving up to your shoulder blade on your right or left side. And perhaps let's imagine yourself going down your spine and you're feeling even more relaxed and more calm. Perhaps let's even let yourself go down to the sensation of your feet, whether it's one or two, but how you are connected to the earth, and the earth gives you energy and allows you to feel grounded and connected. And all that excess negative vibrations within you are just feeding off into the earth. And you're feeling more confident, more strong, more aware of your life, more aware of being alive. And now, by retaining that sensation, that energy, go ahead and let yourself emerge, and go ahead and open your eyes at your own pace. And you do feel good, don't you? It's like being conscious, being aware of your body and who you are and what you are. I was just watching a movie this weekend called Fargo, and this is for my script writing class, and so I read the script, and then I watched the movie, and there were a couple things I noticed about that film that I was like, oh, cool, because there's two characters that aren't normally talked about a lot, and that's winter. Winter is always present, and also food. It's amazing how often food was present. It was present. They were in kitchens, they were in diners, they were in restaurants. Sometimes food was being made for a character and brought in, or Arby's was being brought in. It was astonishing to me how all the characters, the essence of life, it was like winter was cold death, and then eating food was symbolic of life. And there wasn't a whole lot in between except a lot of death and murders. I actually really like this movie, by the way. But it made me think that it's so much funny. It's so funny how we confuse food with life. Food can give us life. I often see people, the question that is out there is, do we eat to live, or do we live to eat? And how much food is enough? Now, there's the story about how there are these pastors who'd go around and they would give the word of God to their congregations or as they traveled, but they didn't want to eat food, or they didn't want to get into the gluttony of food. So what they would do is they would put ashes on their food. Any food that was offered to them, they would put ashes on it because they thought food was a vanity. Now, I don't want you guys to go that far because any living thing, any living entity, being, we should always honor and respect, whether it's food, whether it's animals. We should respect that they have life. Oh, cool. That's his nose to tell me that. So it's like 11:15. Awesome. Okay. But in essence, food is life, and so we should honor this food. We shouldn't defile it by putting all stuff on it that makes it uncomfortable for us to eat. I mean, be happy when you have the opportunity to eat food, but just be conscious and knowledgeable about why you're eating. I'm just going to look through my list here, my bullet point. I'm so proud of my bullet points. So one of the things that is actually the biggest message that I want to share in today's talk, is that we have such a strong survival instinct. It's amazing. We take everything so seriously, and I know I did. When I thought about death all the time, I was taking everything so seriously. I thought everything was about me. I was definitely the center of the universe. And people are actually criticizing millennials right now about that they're so entitled and that they only think about themselves. They have the hover parents. And I have to say, every generation has their group of entitled people. In some ways, I'm kind of amazed what the millennials have to go through. You know, having the internet available, what's awesome is that they rarely say, I don't know, because you can always Google something. And, but can you imagine? I mean, I used to read dictionaries and encyclopedias because I just wanted to hoover all the information into my brain because I wanted to know everything so I wouldn't make a mistake. Can you imagine, though, having the internet always available even while you were growing up? Like, what a profound responsibility it is to have that information. And so, and to also have, we used to worry about God watching us and sinning and being sent to hell. But now, the millennials, what they have to worry about is everyone watching them and judging them. I mean, that's almost worse than God in a way, because God's up there, it's somewhat ephemeral if you believe in God. But to have everyone trolling your life, that's pretty hard. So definitely be kind to millennials. They've got a lot of love to give, a lot of wisdom, and they have their growing things that they get to go through. But going back to that survival instinct, we as a population take everything so seriously. Everything is a life or death situation. Our job situation is life or death. Whether coffee is available is life or death. Have you guys seen that YouTube video when that lady comes to the McDonald's, was it, and the window, and they don't have something for breakfast, and she just really loses it? Nothing is that important, especially when we have people dying, you know, who have cancer. I sometimes am having a little bit of an issue doing my movie right now, my documentary, and I'm hoping to do a Kickstarter campaign in the next couple of weeks, and if you want to donate, that's awesome. But I have a hard time reconciling asking money for a documentary when people are needing money to have surgery or they have cancer. And so I'm still reconciling that in my brain. But I do think, though, that this documentary can help people have a sense of hope. And it's not just hope, passive hope, because hope without action means nothing. That is something I'd like to say. I don't like blind hope. Faith is okay. But the survival instinct, we take ourselves so seriously. It's like, it's okay if we let ourselves off the hook. We don't need to put a magnifying glass on ourselves. And in fact, to some degree, a lot of our fear isn't really our fear. It's our parents' fear. Do you guys sometimes sense that? See, our parents, they learned, because of the Dust Bowl and a lot of that stuff happening at that time, they learned to show their love through their fear. So right now, I want you guys to imagine your parents' fear for you, their protectiveness, sometimes their anger, because sometimes their anger was about fear for you. They were trying to be teachers. But I want you to just take that fear off of you and throw it to the side, or throw it away from the other person next to you. Go ahead and do that right now. Go ahead and take that fear and imagine yourself picking it off of you and throwing it. Yeah, and if there's any scraps just remaining, get those too. Oh, gosh, what? You keep the love, but yeah, we don't need that fear. And you know what? If you want to do one more swipe for yourself, go ahead and take your fear off of yourself too, because does that fear serve that survival instinct? Oh, God, that's actually really good stretching. So The reality is, though, it's good to feel grateful for our life, but let's live life not like we're dying. Let's live life like we're living. Thank you so much for being here today. I love you all. Thank you. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to hug each other. And what we're going to say is, I love you. And go ahead and hug the person to your right, and you can hug the person to your left. Go ahead. I love you. And now let that love into your heart. I love you. You're so awesome. Thank you. That's so great. All right. So what this means is that this is not just the Day of the Dead, because we can still honor our dead, but let's also honor our life. I love you guys.